Have you ever seen a legal showdown so tense that people genuinely believed the accused was about to lose everything? That's precisely where ASAP Rocky found himself. Not too long ago, he was staring down what felt like a hopeless case, haunted by the possibility of spending over 2 decades behind bars. As the trial unfolded, fans held their breath. Critics weighed in, and even some of Rocky's closest associates turned their backs. Yet in the end, he walked out of that courtroom a free man, leaving everyone to wonder, how did this case collapse so dramatically? Before the court dates and dramatic headlines, Rocky and Relli were just 2 guys in the same circle. They weren't strangers thrown together at random. They knew each other from the Harlem scene, and back when the ASAP crew was first making a name for itself, people believed this brotherhood was rock solid. Fame changes things though. Money starts flowing, new connections are made, and old friendships sometimes crack under the pressure. Rumors had been circling for months about tension between Rocky and Relli. Some claimed it was about money, unpaid debts, or disputed credit for projects. Others whispered it was personal. There was talk that Relli felt overshadowed, like Rocky's success put him in a second-string position he never wanted. Nobody knew if it was petty jealousy, a real feud, or just a misunderstanding. Then Rihanna came into the picture, and that was when whispers of a ticking time bomb turned into an all-out alarm. Rihanna's relationship with Rocky added a whole new layer of intensity. She's more than just a superstar, she's a global icon. If someone in the group already felt ignored, seeing Rihanna on Rocky's arm could have stung worse than ever. People who knew them said the atmosphere around the ASAP camp shifted. The dynamic was different, trust was thinner, and Relli's frustration supposedly grew louder behind the scenes. But that wasn't the whole story. Eventually, everything boiled over on a night nobody saw coming. According to Relli, a heated argument with Rocky got completely out of control, to the point where Rocky allegedly pulled out a gun and fired 2 shots. Relli later insisted the shots were aimed in his direction, leaving him with a wound on his hand. That alone was enough to light up every hip-hop blog and major news outlet in the country. But the initial police reports painted a strange picture. They combed the alleged crime scene and found nothing. No spent shells, no bullet holes, and not a shred of physical proof that a real firearm had been discharged. It baffled law enforcement. If the shooting was that brazen, where was the evidence? 2 days later, Relli showed up with shell casings he claimed to have found on his own. Suddenly, the narrative shifted. Why hadn't detectives discovered these shell casings during their thorough search? Could they really have missed them, or had they simply not been there at all? These questions soon overshadowed the original accusations. The story was starting to look shaky, and onlookers were left wondering whether someone was either tampering with evidence or making it up entirely. But that was just the beginning. News of the alleged incident spread like wildfire, and the media pounced on every detail. Headlines screamed about how ASAP Rocky might be facing 24 years in prison. Fans were torn between disbelief and fear. Was it possible that an artist with Rocky's level of success had thrown everything away in a single moment of rage? Or was the entire story inflated by someone looking for money or attention? Rihanna's involvement took the hype up another notch. This wasn't just a story about 2 friends at odds. It was about a man deeply tied to one of the biggest stars on the planet. The more the press pointed to Rihanna, the more people on social media questioned what role she played in the feud, if any. Some theories claimed that Relli made a pass at her. Others suggested he was upset that Rocky brought her around too freely, disrupting the circle's balance. Nobody knew for sure, but the speculation grew louder with every new headline. Then, as tension peaked, Relli decided to push things further by taking the matter to court. Prosecutors were eager to move forward, especially when a celebrity name is involved. It guarantees big headlines and a spotlight on the case. Even so, many wondered why they would pursue charges this serious with such flimsy evidence. But the real fireworks were about to start. When the trial kicked off, prosecutors largely pinned their hopes on Relli's testimony. He was the accuser, the alleged victim, and the star witness all wrapped into one. His version of events was straightforward. Rocky had a gun, fired it, and caused him real harm. But just as Relli laid out his story, the cracks started to form. Under cross-examination, he gave conflicting timelines, jumbled details, and occasionally contradicted his earlier statements. Rocky's defense hammered these inconsistencies. Joe Tacopina, Rocky's attorney, questioned why there was no immediate evidence at the scene, why the supposed shell casings turned up days later in Relli's possession, and why security footage showed only a heated argument, no undeniable images of a gun being fired. The prosecution pushed back. They suggested that Rocky must have hidden the gun, or that he used a starter pistol that didn't leave the same residue as a live firearm. But they never produced the actual weapon. They never confirmed ballistic matches or introduced any conclusive footage. Essentially, it became one person's word against the other in a high-stakes criminal case. That usually isn't enough. But then, a new voice entered the drama. Azealia Banks is known for jumping into controversies with both feet, and she wasted no time diving into the Rocky Relli saga. According to her, this whole conflict had been brewing for much longer than the public realized. She claimed that from the moment Rihanna was introduced to Rocky's Harlem crew, Relli's attitude changed. She went as far as saying Relli got a little too friendly with Rihanna, setting Rocky on edge. She didn't stop there. Banks dragged ASAP Yams, who tragically passed away after struggling with addiction, into the controversy, suggesting Rocky had some responsibility in Yams's decline. She even accused Rocky of paying hush money to Yams's mother to keep the real story under wraps. Naturally, the internet went wild. People either labeled Azealia as an unhinged gossiper or praised her for spilling tea that the rest of the industry was too scared to mention. But while Azalia's claims dominated social media conversations, they weren't a factor in the courtroom. The judge and jury cared about one question. Did ASAP Rocky really fire a gun at Relli, or was Relli making it all up to settle a personal score? That question was about to be answered. While Azalia's accusations raged online, Rihanna maintained a calm yet visibly concerned presence in court. She arrived in sharp outfits that made headlines, but she didn't give lengthy statements or wave to fans outside. She appeared focused, ensuring that everyone understood she wasn't there for publicity. She was there to support her partner. Some speculated that her presence alone could sway jurors. After all, how many people can say they've seen Rihanna in person, let alone sat in the same room with her? Fans on social media joked that they'd have a hard time voting against someone Rihanna believed in. Whether that joke held a kernel of truth or not, the verdict would hinge on cold, hard facts, or the absence of them. Still, you could see the stress etched on her face. Commentators noted her swift exits, often avoiding paparazzi through side doors. She had 2 children with Rocky, and the possibility of raising them alone for years if he was convicted had to weigh heavily on her. It wasn't just Rocky's freedom at stake, it was their entire family's future. Yet, for all the tension, nothing prepared the world for what happened next. Bit by bit, the prosecution's case began unraveling. Forensic experts failed to find proof that an actual firearm had been discharged. No ballistic matches, no bullet holes, no conclusive residue that signified live rounds were fired. The shell casings Relli produced couldn't be definitively tied to the alleged incident, leaving a gaping hole in the theory that they were from Rocky's gun. Even the security footage that supposedly showed the scuffle was less than conclusive. Yes, it captured a heated altercation, but it never showed Rocky pulling out a gun or firing it. The prosecution tried to argue that the lack of clear footage didn't mean it didn't happen, just that it wasn't caught on camera. But by then, jurors had heard enough contradictory statements from Relli and seen enough missing pieces in the evidence to question the entire case. Rocky's attorney drove that point home in closing arguments. He painted a picture of a prosecution that banked on hype and headlines instead of proof. He pointed out how unusual it was to move forward with charges this serious when the physical evidence was practically non-existent. He challenged the narrative that firing a starter pistol was the same as discharging a live weapon. In other words, it was all bark and no bite. And then, in a matter of hours, the jury emerged with their decision. When the foreperson announced not guilty, the entire courtroom froze. The weight of months and possibly years of stress lifted from Rocky's shoulders. He reportedly let out a long, audible sigh, while Rihanna quietly reached for his hand. Friends and family in the gallery erupted into muffled cheers, tears, and hugs. For onlookers, the speed of the verdict was almost as startling as the verdict itself. Many expected a drawn-out debate, given the sensational coverage. Instead, the jury saw a weak case and made a clear call. The message was unmistakable. There simply wasn't enough proof to convict Rocky on such severe charges. Outside the courtroom, fans celebrated. Online forums lit up with comments like, "Justice served," and "They had no case." Others, still unconvinced, argued that celebrity influence had overshadowed justice. But regardless of opinions, one fact stood. ASAP Rocky walked out of that courtroom with his freedom intact, no probation, and no prison time. But the bigger question remained. Once the dust settled, people started asking what had truly gone down between Rocky and Relli. Was it all about money, jealousy, or a misunderstanding that blew up to epic proportions? Did Rihanna's mere presence magnify an already tense situation, turning a mild spat into a federal case? Azealia Banks insisted there was more to the story, layer upon layer of hidden drama, illicit secrets, and suppressed guilt. She pointed to issues within the ASAP mob that date back years, including lingering resentments after ASAP Yams' passing. She claimed that Rocky had never fully addressed the emotional fallout from losing Yams, and that it caused cracks in the group's loyalty. However, none of her allegations ever became part of the official evidence. Despite all these questions, the trial gave fans something undeniable. A hard lesson in how quickly reputations and lives can be put on the line by serious allegations. One accusation, amplified by the media and fueled by rumors, can spiral out of control, landing even a superstar in the defendant's seat. With the case officially closed, Rocky can turn his attention back to what matters most: his music, his family, and the brand he's built so carefully. He no longer has to contemplate losing 2 decades of his life to a prison cell. Rihanna, for her part, can breathe easier knowing she won't be left to raise their children alone while their father serves time. Yet, the entire fiasco exposed vulnerabilities beneath the glamour of celebrity life. One moment you're riding high, and the next you're entangled in a legal storm so severe it could wipe out everything you've worked for. The question of whether Relli truly believed he had been wronged or was motivated by something else remains unanswered. In the court of public opinion, some see Relli as a liar who tried to bring Rocky down for personal gain. Others hold fast to the idea that some altercation must have happened, even if it wasn't as dramatic as he claimed. Either way, ASAP Rocky is no longer defined by this case. He gambled when he turned down an early plea deal, risking a potential 24-year sentence. It was a high-risk, high-reward move, and he came out on top. Now he's free to return to the studio and the stage, while Rihanna continues to break boundaries in music, business, and fashion. In a world where social media inflates every rumor into a full-blown scandal, it's easy to get swept up in sensational headlines. But this trial is a stark reminder that accusations without solid evidence can crumble, no matter how loud the noise gets. It also shows how easily a personal feud can escalate, especially when fame and fortune are involved. A small crack in a friendship can grow into a fault line that shakes an entire empire. So, was this just another overblown industry beef? Or was there a deeper truth that never made it into the courtroom? We may never know for sure, but one thing is clear: the sight of ASAP Rocky stepping out of court a free man, hand in hand with Rihanna, is a moment no one will forget anytime soon. Their story might be filled with twists and turns, but right now, they're back on solid ground, and the world is waiting to see where they go from here. What do you think really happened behind the scenes? Was this a case of petty jealousy spinning out of control, or something even bigger lurking under the surface? Let your voice be heard, and while you're at it, don't forget to subscribe, because in the realm of music and celebrity, there's always another secret about to be revealed.